My name is Matthew Mendoza. I graduated from the University of North Texas in 2014 with a bachelor's degree in biology and a minor in chemistry. My current job title is a doctoral candidate at UT Southwestern Medical Center, where I'm pursuing my PhD in neuroscience, but I also hold many other titles. For instance, I'm a Howard Hughes Medical Institute Gilliam Fellow. In addition to that, I've also started a STEM nonprofit organization, more specifically a chapter for a group called SACNAS, which stands for Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. I've also played a role in educational policy, more specifically for the UT system, where I've worked as a chair of the UT System Student Advisory Council. So when I started at UNT, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. In fact, my plans have gone through a series of changes. And this is in part because of where I began. When I first started school, I was a low-income, first-generation student. In fact, my parents dropped me off and virtually told me good luck. I really had no foundation. I had no idea what college was going to be like and what it was going to be long-term for me. I started in terms of biology because I always had an interest in medicine and science, but ultimately I didn't think medicine was the right fit for me. So in terms of what was next, I was really fortunate to get involved in academic research in about 2011. And in particular, I'd like to give credit to the McNair Scholars Program here at UNT, which gave me access to high-quality research from an academic perspective. That introduced me to a path that ultimately I had no clue that was even available for someone like myself. Eventually, over time, I realized that academic research was kind of an escape from chaos of life, especially being a first-generation student. So I began to follow that line of pursuit, if you will. So basically from 2011 up until this point, I've continued to follow the path of academic research. And in 2014, I graduated here at the University of North Texas and started immediately at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. I've been there since 2014, so it's been about 6 years. And I'm nearly done, so I'm going to graduate my PhD in neuroscience in hopefully 3 or 4 months. And my plans are changing, again, in fact. I originally thought academic research was the right place for me, but I realized that it's limited in its scope. So I ultimately would like to have a broader reach and impact on society. So I'm actually changing my plans one more time and hoping to make a transition into biopharmaceutical industry, where I can make advances in drug development and therapeutic advancements as well. What advice do I have for current students? I actually feel like I have a ton of advice, actually, in part because I feel a lot of students nowadays follow the path that their parents or society puts out for them. And I think that's a totally incorrect move, especially starting off. So my biggest piece of advice for all students is to find what their values are. So clearly identify your values and align your career goals with those values. It sounds somewhat cliche, and it actually has taken me close to 2 or 3 years to clearly articulate what those are. Since I've done that, it's been much easier for me to make transitions in my life and align my career goals with what I ultimately would like to do, which is help people and use my degree to do so. I will also admit that values change over time. Life circumstances also change over time, so you must be willing to adapt accordingly. So with life comes career moves, and never stop learning. Neuroscience as a field is very interdisciplinary, meaning that I have to pull knowledge from multiple different fields in science and outside of science. For instance, I pull knowledge from physics, chemistry, and genetics often, but I also have to pull knowledge from communication, philosophy, and marketing to be able to talk and communicate effectively the science that I'm doing. My role here at UNT and multiple organizations, in addition to my program, gave me a broad enough experience to interact with individuals such as myself and my peers, but more importantly, it also gave me the broad knowledge base that I needed to be able to constantly pull from these fields to be successful at any moment. So outside of really just the classroom, the organizations that I participated in helped polish me to be a better public speaker. It helped polish me to become a better writer in a scientific journal, scientific journalist in many aspects, a scientific investigator, in addition to a better leader. I served in North Texas, or NT40. I was a McNair Scholar on campus. In addition to, my fraternity taught me the kind of necessary social skills to really be a social chameleon in any aspect that I've ever been in. I think by far the toughest question is, why do you want a PhD? I think a lot of people, again, are listening to society and their parents, and they're just following along with what's being told to them. So why is it that I want it, and what is it going to help me do at the end of the day? The second toughest question is, why should they choose me? As a student who faces imposter syndrome on a regular basis, if I should or shouldn't be there, that question actually made me delve into myself. And why is it that I had a unique experience, and what is it that I had to offer for those respective institutions that interviewed me. So those two questions were definitely the most difficult that I had to deal with. So the Career Center helped me in so many ways. In fact, I actually worked at the Career Center from 2012 to 2014. I was considered a career peer advisor. So basically my job was to teach people how to develop resumes, teach them interview skills, and actually mock interview students that are coming in on a regular basis. In addition to all of those things, I had to give regular presentations in front of hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of people, in part because I was the only one willing to come in on a Saturday. So when I got here, I had never really had a public speaking opportunity, a public speaking experience, and I was thrust into that experience. I had no choice. And now I have to give public talks in many different capacities, whether it's science, whether it's educational policy, whether it's STEM nonprofit, or even just teaching. And it's been remarkable that the experience that I've gotten from the Career Center to actually get in front of people and do a lot of talking, I think it's ultimately made me a more well-rounded public speaker, a more comfortable public speaker, especially compared to some of my peers where we're at in our current training. In addition to just that experience by itself, it taught me the classic application material preparation process, which is actually much longer, especially after having a PhD. It takes close to almost a full year to find a job. So networking, doing the right things you need in terms of resume prep, cover letter prep, but also finding ways to articulate and market your transferable skills, that's an art form. And it took many years to develop that. And in fact, I still teach people to this day. My wife constantly asks me, can you help me with my resume? How I got to UNT is quite a story. In fact, my family is a low-income first-generation family. And I grew up in a household where we lived in a Section 8 income. We lived really in the heart of the projects, and unfortunately my father fell to drug addiction. And my mother paid the consequences for that. So we had a large family, and trying to manage everyone was very difficult for all of us. I'm actually the only one that's made it out. So the story behind all of that is basically one day our electricity got shut off. They decided that, well, we have no electricity at home, we might as well take Matt to college. It's August, I guess he should be starting soon. So we drove up, and unbeknownst to me, there's this thing called tuition, and you have to pay for college. So I literally show up the day, 2018, August, I think it's August 23rd. Show up the day tuition is due. I actually had no money. I did not sign up for a dorm room. I barely had used a computer before. I had no books, and we had to scramble. In fact, I borrowed money from my aunt, a $3,000 loan. Thanks, Aunt Debbie, by the way. And she paid for my first tuition installment and my ability to find an apartment for the first time. I found an apartment right off of campus. Yes, I was a freshman. I did not live in a dorm room, so I apologize for breaking the rules. But ultimately, it suited me well. I spent the first 6 months at UNT sleeping on a cot. I could not afford furniture. In fact, I had 2 leopard print chairs, 1 huge green chair, and a cot in the bedroom. I paid about $450 for an apartment. And in terms of passing my classes, I barely went to class the first year. And I made two Fs. I decided to join a fraternity because I really was interested in what the college experience could have been like. And while it was very fun, it deterred me from my studies for sure. However, those guys really influenced my life. In fact, in the summer of 2008 to 2009, something happened that really changed my life. My mother passed away. I was very close with my mother, and that was extremely difficult. Being the first one to get away from my family, you always have this concept of survivor's guilt. You feel the guilt of anything you're able to do, whether it's go to a fast food place or whether it's to better yourself and focus on studying and knowing that back at home, people barely have food. Electricity's getting shut off. My sisters are having children at young ages, in part because the environment we lived in. And I, for some reason, was lucky enough to get out of all of that. So from 2009, after my mother passed, I realized that I had an opportunity in front of me that I really couldn't waste anymore. And I was very fortunate for UNT to even give me a shot. I probably didn't deserve it academically, but really, I came back. I was on academic probation, and I started working harder. I started basically not accepting failure as an option. And I unfortunately still failed classes. Organic chemistry is a very difficult class, but I eventually learned the system, the game of college. In addition to that, I learned who I wanted to become. And UNT has given me so much. It's given me my wife. We just got married 3 months ago now. We have 2 dogs. I'm at the process of being able to purchase a home. Right? No one in my family's ever done that. No one in my family's ever been married before. No one in my family's ever had a wedding before. In addition to all of this, I'm in the process of adopting one of my younger sisters right now. So not only could I, better myself, but I can pay it forward. Family life is still very difficult. I still deal with lots of stuff often, but the connections and the friends that I made here, in fact, I still contact many of the people to this day. The old McNair director, Dr. Diana Elrod, she's a great friend of mine. In fact, I just reached out to her, seeing if she was available to meet, because these people really, at the end of the day, the people is what you remember the most. The information is great, but the people and the experiences will last a lifetime. So I've been very blessed.